So earlier this month, I took my first ever trip to Denver, Colorado. Sadly, I usually take trips alone, but thought it might be fun to reconnect with an old friend and invited him to come along. More about this bad decision later. We spent 2 days at a remote cabin in the mountains that unknowingly didn't have Wi-Fi, cell reception, or a TV. Never again. And the last 3 days we stayed in Denver at a loft-style Airbnb where we did lots of thrifting, donut eating, and museum exploring. And yes, I realize how fortunate I am to be able to go on a vacation, as I know many people don't have this luxury right now. So if you've been itching for a vacation recently, sit back and I'll bring you along on mine. So I have just finished packing. My suitcase is right down there, and my mom was already here to take me to the airport. So I need to go get in the car. Surprisingly, my flight on the way to Denver was nearly empty. Coming home was a different story though. Even the airport was like a ghost town. Once I got my luggage, I took a shuttle bus to pick up what was supposed to be a 4-wheel drive Jeep. Long story short, it was a really shady car rental company and they wanted an extra $200 for a 4-wheel drive vehicle that I had already paid for. So instead I got this rear-wheel drive SUV. We had a 2-hour drive to the cabin, so stopped for some refreshments, and the most important, a place called the Happy Camper. I mean, when in Colorado, right? They were super friendly here and had a few too many options. These are what we ended up choosing. We continued on our epic scenery drive that led to a 10-mile gravel road up the mountains. Notice how we're starting to see more snow now? And finally, we made it. This was my first time ever seeing mountains, and I was so excited. Then the inside of the cabin was pretty cozy with the wood beams and a wood-burning fireplace. It had one bedroom on the main floor, which is where I slept, and a super tiny bathroom, but it worked. Then the kitchen had this super old oven with a big farmhouse sink. And if you know me, you know I really like older vintage things. So the use of all the older pieces like the windmill, the oil lanterns, and the vintage stove were right up my alley. It also had a loft on the top back half where my friend was going to stay, but it ended up being so hot up there that he brought a mattress down to the living room. Besides, the stairs to the loft were dangerously steep. So one thing you may not know about me yet is my love for making fires. I honestly think I might be a slight pyromaniac, especially anytime I'm around a fireplace, I have to be the one putting logs on. And as long as there's a fire going, I'll be sitting right in front of it. Before settling in for the night, we took a drive to the nearest town, which was 30 minutes away, where by 7 p.m. everything was closed except a gas station. So we grabbed some snacks and came back to the cabin where we had some drinks and our treats from the Happy Camper. So I just woke up. It's like 11 o'clock. I'm about to start a fire because it's really chilly in here. But it's snowing outside and it looks so pretty because we're in the mountains, so I'm going to show you. So something I actually love more than a fireplace is snow. If it could snow every day, I'd honestly never get tired of it. To me, there's nothing better than sitting in a cabin next to a fire while it's snowing outside. As I said earlier, the cabin didn't have cell service, Wi-Fi, or TV, so we decided to head into town for some groceries and to check the weather. Again, we didn't have 4-wheel drive, and we didn't want to get stuck in the mountains. We found the only coffee shop in town and decided to drive around to see what the town had to offer. Apparently, it used to be an old mining town and was popular during the gold rush. This was pretty apparent as many of the houses and buildings looked like they had been around for a long time. We stopped in a few of the shops, and they had pieces that I'd expect to find in Denver, like pottery, gemstones, fossils, and gold flakes. It was supposed to snow all day, so we figured we should get back to the cabin. We started going for a hike, but then there's too much snow and we're not really dressed enough for that, so now we're just looking at the view. I enjoyed being out in the snow, but didn't really bring the warmest coat, and with the wind, it really wasn't bearable for more than like 10-15 minutes. I hadn't started a fire yet inside as we were out of kindling, so decided to chop some up. Okay, so does anyone else really like cutting logs, or is this just another really weird thing that I like to do? Right now it is snowing outside kind of a lot, and it's a little bit chilly in the cabin, so I'm going to make a fire because I am a pyromaniac. Oh look, I'm making another fire. I told you. And once it's made, I just like sitting in front of it and watching it. Anybody else? You may have noticed this little fan here, and it actually works once it's heated up from the fire, and then it pushes the warm air out. Pretty cool. It's kind of crazy how slow time goes when you don't have a phone or a TV to distract you with. But don't get me wrong, it was super cozy and relaxing just sitting by a fire and doing nothing all day. But one thing I can always distract myself with is food. So I cooked myself a pizza, a frozen pizza. It was definitely a little bit challenging cooking on this old stove, but I made it work. It's about 6 o'clock. I'm having some tea. It is still really snowing outside. And I think I'm just gonna sit in front of the fire a little bit because we don't have a TV here or Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit boring. Thankfully, the cabin had an abundance of games. But to be totally honest, I kind of really hate games. But when you've got nothing to do, they're better than nothing. It's our last day at our first Airbnb. We were here for 2 days. It snowed all day yesterday, and then today the sun is out and you can see the mountains. But the next Airbnb is in Denver, and it actually has a fireplace too, so I am excited about that. And it'll be nice to have Wi-Fi and cell phone reception again. Bye, cute cabin. Bye, fireplace. Bye, cute loft. And bye, super cute oven. I grabbed a few logs for our next Airbnb and packed up my luggage. To be honest, I could have stayed at the cabin a few more days, but by myself. I won't go too much into it, but to put it nicely, we hadn't really talked in like 5 years, and let's just say people can change a lot during that time, and not always for the better. On the 2-hour drive back to Denver, we decided to check out this almost ghost town. You could tell the houses here had been built a long time ago, and many of them looked abandoned. Also on our drive was this picture-perfect creek, so we pulled over to check it out. I'd honestly never seen nature look as pretty as she did that day. Someone had even stacked these stones to where they were curving. It was kind of unreal when you looked at it close up. We are in Denver now at our second Airbnb. It is so freaking cute. There's a cute little attic space on the second floor. That's where I'm sleeping. So I'm gonna give you guys a tour real quick.
Listen up, I gotta tell you, there is something you should know. I have never really liked you at all. I cannot hide it anymore. I've been thinking about the future, trying to forget about the past. So many ways that I could change for the better. Don't even know where to begin. If I allow myself to dream, will it be as good?
After relaxing for a little bit, we decided to explore Denver and of course go to some thrift stores. This first thrift store was called Garage Sale. It was 2 levels and they also served drinks here. It was full of unique pieces that were pretty reasonably priced. My favorite was this lady's face jewelry dish. After shopping and walking around for a little bit, we decided to play some pool and have a few drinks. And then of course, go to Voodoo Donut because you know I love sugar. They offer lots of interesting flavors and they have tons of vegan options as well. Got a Voodoo Donut. I just got a regular glazed. There's only $1. It's so soft, it feels like it was just made. That's a pretty good donut. No lie, this was the best plain donut I've ever had. And can you guess what I did next? I know, you're really surprised, aren't you? The next day, we got up and went to this really unique vegan restaurant. It was called Bang Up to the Elephant. If you're ever in Denver, definitely check it out. We were kind of in a rush and only had time for a drink, but they were so good. And the staff was really friendly here. So we are about to go check out this museum that's right across the street, and we thought we'd get a drink. Very exciting. I promise, I'm not alone. There's somebody sitting right there. He's just camera shy. So as some of you know, I'm really into history and vintage pieces, especially like decor and clothing and fashion. So I am at this really cool place today. I think it was built in the late 1800s or the very early 1900s, and it's owned by a woman, and it's all the original how it used to be way back in the day. So I'm about to go take a tour. So this is called the Molly Brown House Museum, and basically it was on its way to being demolished in the 1960s when a group of people saved it and restored it to how it was around the time it was originally built in the late 1800s. And I won't really go too much into it, but Molly Brown was one of the original owners, and she was also a survivor of the Titanic. And over the last 100 years, it's been a boarding house, an orphanage school, or a school for girls, something like that. But basically, it didn't always look like this. They restored it to look like this. So this is a 3-story house, and I'm not showing you every room, because if you like stuff like this and you're ever in Denver, I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, I am so fascinated by stuff like this. Like, when you think about history, I don't so much like the dates or the historic events, etc. What I like are all the tangible items. The clothes, furniture, jewelry, decor, machinery, electronics, stuff like that. It just blows my mind. Like, shit used to be made to last a lifetime. If something broke, you didn't just throw it away, you fixed it. So going through a museum like this, where every single thing is at least 60 to 100 years old, it just all really fascinates me. And like, their lives were so different than ours. Life back then was so hard. You could die from a staph infection or a cut on your knee. After the museum, I of course had to do more thrifting and found a bunch of super unique vintage clothing stores. As you may have noticed, I tend to gravitate towards fun vintage prints, especially flowers and plaid pants. When it comes to modern clothing though, I like more solid colors. Really though, I'm just looking for unique vintage pieces that I haven't seen before. Like these denim button-downs with the fun trim are something I would totally wear. We were both hungry for pad thai, so made a quick stop at this place called Hey Bangkok. Again, super good, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Then we were right back to thrifting. I was honestly so surprised by each shop's vintage clothing selection. Like, sometimes I feel like vintage clothing shops can all look the same and not have very interesting pieces, but each one of these shops were different, and they honestly each had amazing pieces. This one shop even had their clothes organized by the decade, which I had never really seen before. After shopping, we decided to grab a drink at Union Station. The atmosphere in here was super fun, and they had turned the main lobby into a chill lounge space with couches where you could order drinks. And it's also still a working hub where you can catch a bus or a train. So it's my last night at my Airbnb, and I'm just cutting some sticks to go into the fire. And I will probably just be sitting here the next 4 hours because I can never get enough of a fire because it feels so good. Yes, I know it's green.
I guess we couldn't see, somehow we couldn't feel. Maybe we rose so fast.
My flight leaves in like 4 hours. Gonna go do a few things in Denver, and then I'll be home again. Buy cute fireplace, buy cute kitchen, buy cute loft, buy cute plants, buy cute house. It's super nice out today. Just walking around, checking out stores and little shops and stuff. I think I'm in the 5 Points area is what it's called. The day before, I'd asked a local what's fun to do on Sundays, and she mentioned the Nomad. It kind of reminded me of something you'd find in New York. There were a bunch of different vendors selling things like vintage clothing, plants, jewelry, skincare, and home decor. And finally, my vacation was over. I was really surprised when I got to the Denver airport and it was packed. And then as I was checking my luggage, they told me that my flight was full, like 100%. So I may have stopped for a drink to calm my nerves. Did you know that you can carry a drink around the airport? I had no idea. It was finally time to board my flight, which was outside. The last time I boarded a plane outside, I think I was like 7. I didn't think they still did this. The flight was indeed full, but thankfully it was super short and I was once again home. I am finally back from my trip. I am so tired. Today was a long ass day. And don't you love when you come home after a few days and you have packages? I can't wait to open them.